Hello, welcome to City as a Classroom. My name is Eduardo Almeida, and today we're going to talk a very important topic in the next few minutes, which is basically, is it safe to live in cities nowadays? One of the most important effects of globalization is the possibility for people to move from their origins to new cities, to start their life, and to look for opportunities to grow, to educate, and to provide better life quality to their families. Basically, one of the most important aspects of moving to a new place, into a large capital, is around safety. Is it safe to move from my origins to a new capital where I don't know much? What are the threats, the risks that are there waiting for me? What kind of awareness should I have previously before moving in order to be able to avoid risk exposures? But before we talk about it, let's try to define safety. So safety is a very personal and a very individual consideration. So for me, safety is definitely a circumstance where I'm not exposed to risk. But can someone be 100% free of risks? Is it possible to confirm and to affirm that is absolutely risk-free living somewhere in this modern world? So in fact, there is no such a thing. So there is risks. There are risks around us, and the biggest question, or the most important questions that we should consider whenever thinking about risk assessment is, how much risks, or what kind of risk am I willing to take whenever making a decision to live in a big city, right? So let's try to define risks for a while. Let's start with physical risks. So when you fly to a place or you arrive somewhere, the first sensation that we have is definitely awareness. So I want to know what kind of threats are there that I can be exposed to. So is it a place where kidnaps, hijacks, robbery, looting, or even social or other social turmoils happens frequently? Are there, risks, natural risks, for instance, available? Is the city illuminated? So what is it, the lighting strategy to prevent robbery, to prevent other types of threats to citizens? So for me, risk can be something, for you could be something very different. Let's suppose, let's pick for instance, homeless in New York City. So is he really or she really concerned about terror? Or is he or she more concerned about food and water provisioning, sheltering in the winter season? So having a shelter could be the thin line between living or dying in the winter when you have minus 30 degrees temperatures, right? So risk assessments are very complex and should be considered by individuals. Now, also, if you consider risks from a country standpoint, not a city standpoint, for a person living in Afghanistan, risk could be something very different than a person living in Austria. For me, here in Brazil, São Paulo is very different. People are more concerned nowadays somehow with digital threats comparing to physical threats. Now, physical threats could also be relevant whenever you consider natural threats or natural incidents. So there comes a very important topic, which is basically the authority, the city authority capability to provide resources, information, and to prevent these kind of threats. So whenever we talk about a city located in a seismic zone, for instance, the natural behavior could be expecting that the local authorities could provide information around the most complex or the most dangerous place to be. So if you are located right on top of a seismic zone, where could be the epicenter of a problem, right? Where are the city places where you can expect flooding, and we have when you have tsunami, for instance. So the local authorities have a very strong responsibility to provide citizens a way to anticipate risks and mitigate those risks. I also want to talk about a modern risk type, which does not have, in a first moment, borders in control, and I'm talking about digital threats. So today, digital menaces are very frequent. And they are divided in two categories. So a person can be vulnerable by having its identity theft. Someone is, just stealing the identity and pretending to be someone, and banking robbery, banking frauds. Those are the most frequent and most common aspects of cyber crimes. And the reason why I mentioned that those crimes, they don't have borders, is because they really can't be controlled by a local authority itself. Someone can threat, a young person, medical school student in Minsk from São Paulo, or vice versa. So there are no barriers, no borders to refrain from these threats. However, local authorities, governments, companies, they should provide the tools required to be more proactive and to prevent this type of crimes. They can be prevented for sure. And when you see other types of crimes that we are talking here, like terror, for instance, just think about a city like New York City, London, Paris. They have one of the most prepared police personnel and law enforcement personnel in the world, and however they were not able to prevent some terror situations that happened there, terror crimes, and people lost faith for a moment in the local authorities when it happens, because at the end they failed. However, they are absolutely instrumental. They are absolutely critical to provide a feeling or a sensation of security living in big cities. Part of having a large police personnel available everywhere in a district, in a street, in an avenue, or in a town is definitely to provide this kind of feeling, the safe feeling that you feel secure, you feel protected, and you are not vulnerable to delinquents, right? So part of the security and this feeling sensation in big cities, in modern cities, is expected to be provided by the local authorities. Could be the mayor, could be the governor, but the local authorities, they should have a bureau of natural disaster catastrophic plan, right? Things that happen in the recent years, or just now in Lebanon, for instance, which was very, very sad, could be prevented and could be avoided if we have local authorities looking after potential threats with a more concise way, more proactive way, right? So whenever we have the rule of law, whenever we have a proactive local authority overseeing risks and having assessments in risks, we can definitely guarantee citizens that they can expect that they're living in a city is not dangerous. It is not dangerous at all. So making sure that people know how much risks they can take and what are the risks they accept to have to live a better life somewhere will make a big difference. So whenever living in a big city, yes, it is safe to live as much as you know how much risks can you have. And when you know the type of risks that are more frequent or are more clear to take place at that city level. So just make sure you know the risks and be safe.